And a good evening to everybody out there, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Facebook Live, YouTube, and Twitter. Woo, I'm so hyped up for this show today. Oh, this is going to be a good one. Listen, week one was fun. I think week two is better. Honest to God, I think week two is better. Lots to talk about. The game of the week was the last game yesterday. Of course, the Ravens and the Chiefs. Going to talk about that from both the Ravens and Chiefs perspective, and a lot of thoughts on Lamar Jackson, my guy Lamar Jackson, who I've constantly defended on this show and will continue to do so, certainly with much more ease than last week. Going to talk a little bit about the Dallas Cowboys win. Of course, I'm wearing my Dak Prescott hat as I do 75-80% of the shows, it seems like. Going to talk about the Cowboys, going to talk about the Chargers. Lots to break down from that game, and Mike McCarthy especially. We're not letting you off the hook for this one. Going to get into that later in the show. Also, a 44-year-old in Tampa just threw 5 touchdown passes, and no, it wasn't your cousin in, some rec league or something. It was actually a real quarterback in a real NFL game. So, lots to get into there. You have, of course, referring to Tom Brady and some mind-blowing stats to get into, as well as Derek Carr. Derek Carr balled out against the Raiders. Against the Steelers. Played for the Raiders, and a lot to get around the league. Can't wait to talk about all the games. I mean, this is a packed show, and then at the end, going to predict Packers, Lions, Monday Night Football. A lot to get into today. I love football Mondays. This is what it's all about. So let's start with the Ravens and the Chiefs. It was a heck of a football game last night. I picked Kansas City to win, but I said on Friday, I'm picking Kansas City because they are better than Baltimore. At least I thought at the time. But I said, for all those that are just ripping Lamar Jackson to shreds, oh, you can't beat Kansas City, you can't beat Kansas City. Well, most people can't. I mean, unless your name is Tom Brady, nobody's ever beaten them in the play, or at least under Patrick Mahomes, nobody's ever beaten them in the playoffs. So why are we criticizing Lamar Jackson? I digress. But as far as the game, Lamar Jackson balled out, did his thing, and here's what impressed me the most about Lamar. He goes down 11 points in the fourth quarter. He's playing okay, but he's not. I mean, sure, he's making some nice plays here and there, but he's not doing anything where you're like, wow, look at Lamar Jackson. But what Lamar Jackson did is something that some other quarterbacks don't do. Aaron Rodgers, Carson Wentz. A lot of quarterbacks aren't that good when they're down. They're just not. And people have criticized Lamar. He's bad when he's down. Well, last night, fourth quarter, down 11, balled out. And I know what people are going to say, well, the Lamar, skeptics are going to say, well, Patrick Mahomes threw a bad interception. By the way, Patrick Mahomes' first ever interception in the month of September in his NFL life, which is absurd, and it was a bad one. And it came at a pretty bad time for the Chiefs. But Lamar Jackson missed Hollywood Brown earlier in the game on what was going to be a walk-in touchdown. Hollywood Brown, he's actually Antonio Brown's cousin, I believe. He can run, man. I mean, he got behind the Kansas City defense like that. Lamar missed him. He overshot him. He was juiced up for the game. Okay? The very next play, Tyrann Mathieu, the guy who gets beat by Hollywood Brown, picks off a bad Lamar Jackson pass, runs it to the house. 7-0 Chiefs. Later in the game, at least in the first half, Lamar throws another bad interception. In my opinion, it was worse. Throws into triple coverage. They're in the red zone. They got momentum. And Lamar Jackson throws it right to Tyrann Mathieu. And it's a big interception, a big takeaway for the Chiefs. But Lamar Jackson, last night, was unbelievable. Okay? Threw for 239 yards, a touchdown. I mentioned the 2 interceptions. And led the team in rushing with a $107. I've talked about Lamar Jackson in the same breath, in the same way that I've talked about Giannis. They play a little different than the other quarterbacks or the other NBA superstars, but nobody can do their thing like they can. Nobody in the history of the game, including Michael Vick. I'm going to include Michael Vick in here. Nobody in the NFL in the history of the game has played quite like Lamar Jackson. Okay, you could say Michael Vick was the trailblazer for what Lamar Jackson was going to be. I'll give you that. Mike Vick couldn't run like this dude. he didn't have the evasiveness that Lamar Jackson did. He listen, Michael Vick was a cheat code, especially in Madden. But Lamar Jackson, it feels like it's 7-8 yards before someone even gets a hand on him. He's quick, he's fast, he's physical. Obviously, we all know a few years ago he put on some muscle. I don't want him running too physically. I don't want him getting hurt out there. But he runs well. He's an accurate throw of the football. That's who he is. Down 11, 2 scoring drives in the fourth quarter, and the drive after, obviously, Clyde Edwards-Helaire fumbled. After Mahomes got him right down the field, Mahomes doing Mahomes things, got him right down the field in field goal range, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire with the costly turnover of the game. Baltimore covers, and, of course, they get the first down. As I have a comment here from my man, it's been a while, Barry Grant Jr., All Even Podcast. If it wasn't for Clyde Edwards-Helaire fumble, Kansas City wins, and we are not having this Lamar Jackson love fest. Well, I am, my friend. Because even if Kansas City wins that game, I'm saying the same thing about Lamar Jackson. To me, it wasn't about him beating Kansas City. Sure, it was good for him to get the monkey off his back. I get that. But for me, it was about, I've seen him do it before. Add to it that most people don't beat Patrick Mahomes. I heard somebody say, well, Derek Carr's beating Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, he plays him twice a year. He's got twice the opportunity that Lamar has. And so that's what I'm looking at. We're talking about a Ravens team. I talked about this last Thursday. The first show after the Ravens, of course, lost, and Lamar had the strip sack that lost the game against the Vegas Raiders, who are 2-0. I'm going to get to Vegas later on the show. But I said on Thursday, look, Lamar Jackson took over a 3-5 team and got him to the playoffs. And then the year after that, he improved. He won MVP, but he didn't play well in the playoffs. Okay, he's not the MVP last year, but then he wins a playoff game, so he takes another step in the right direction. And then this year, he does something he hasn't done before. He beat Kansas City. This is why I had Baltimore beating Cleveland in the division, is because I don't believe in Baker Mayfield. I don't want to make this too much about Baker, but they beat the Texans by 10 at home against Houston's third-string quarterback, who's a rookie. And Lamar just beat Patrick Mahomes. I digress. But one of the key things to the game that I saw, and it's been going around the internet, is during the game, it's late. The two guys calling the game, Al Michaels, Chris Collinsworth on NBC, they're just saying on fourth down, certainly Al Michaels, I've never heard him this animated about a coaching decision. He's like, no, you can't go for it. You can't go for it. You can't do it. And John Harbaugh, you'll see right here in the video, those who are watching live, you can read his lips. He says, Lamar, you want to go for it? He said, let's go. He trusts Lamar. For those of you who didn't catch the first try, you'll see it again. But John Harbaugh trusted his quarterback. And so I think what it goes to show you is that the coach-quarterback relationship, and you can maybe even throw GM in there, it's almost equal. It's almost equal nowadays. And that's something, and listen, I ripped Aaron Rodgers last week, and he deserved every bit of it. But that's kind of what Aaron Rodgers wants in Green Bay. That's what Russell Wilson wanted in Seattle. Is for the coach to trust you, to buy into you. I can tell you right now, I will guarantee it, Charles Barkley style, hopefully with different Charles Barkley results, Lamar Jackson's getting an extension. Baker Mayfield? I think he's going to get an extension. I'm more certain of that than not, but boy, the Browns putting themselves in a world of hurt if they pay Baker $40 million, whereas with Lamar, I don't think they'll miss a beat. If anything, it'll take a little bit of stress off Lamar. Look what's going on with Dak right now. All right, Dak the last 2 years had a few off games trying to get his money. Well, now he's got his money. Pressure's off. Now the pressure is to go win a Super Bowl, which that to Dak, that's kind of the old pressure is privilege saying, right? For Lamar, it's something that's out of your control. But he's balling out right now. Shouts to him. Played outstanding. Did what he always does, and that is win. Not Tim Tebow style, not throwing for $150, barely completing 50% of his passes. The defense and the special teams are really what wins the games and not the quarterback. No. Lamar Jackson's won 80% of his games. 80%. That's pretty good. Like, that's Dan Marino stuff early in Dan's career. We all think Dan Marino is one of the 5 best quarterbacks ever. At least I do. Not saying Lamar's going to be that, but he wins. Joe Flacco, after that Super Bowl, he didn't win a whole lot. Lamar's doing it. He's going to continue to do it. Baltimore's going to win this division, and hey, they may even surprise me. They're probably in the Super Bowl picture. So probably in that Super Bowl bubble we talk about with Kansas City and Buffalo. I thought in the AFC it was a 2-team race. Kansas City, Buffalo. Might have to throw Baltimore in there. I get it. It was at home. I don't know if they can go to Arrowhead and win, but certainly would have put it past them. And then on Kansas City's end, listen, if you're the Chiefs, to me, this is a pretty discouraging loss. Not because of your offense. Your offense did what your offense always does. They scored 35. I predicted Kansas City would score 34. I underestimated them by a point. They scored 35. That's what they do. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL. He is. He made some throws, made some questionable throws, and then made some throws. I'm like, there's few humans in the history of the world that can make those throws. But what's concerning to me about Kansas City, this is starting to remind me a little bit of 2018. And for Chiefs fans, you know what I'm talking about. Patrick Mahomes breaks into the league, throws 50 touchdown passes, wins the MVP. But a lot of those games that you won in spite of your defense, and a lot of the games you lost, you lost because of your defense. And ultimately, in the AFC Championship game against the New England Patriots, your offense couldn't be stopped in the fourth quarter, but neither could theirs. That was the difference. It was a matter of who was going to get at the ball first in overtime, who was going to win the coin toss, and it was Tom Brady, and of course, went right down the field, and the Patriots were on to their 10th Super Bowl, I think. I've lost count. 9th Super Bowl in the Tom Brady-Belichick era. But the thing with Kansas City, for me, is the fact that they put up 35. Mahomes looked amazing. Travis Kelce had... Come on. How many tight ends can make that play that Travis Kelce made? I think it was in the third quarter. Like, come on. I mean, Mahomes was making guys... Who's this one guy? Pringle? Byron Pringle? Who's that? Mahomes makes everybody look good. Andy Reid makes everybody look good. Offensive mastermind, insanely talented quarterback, beautiful relationship. And you're seeing you're seeing that now in the 4th year of the Mahomes-Andy Reid pairing. But your defense couldn't get a stop. They got 2 turnovers. They couldn't get a stop. Something else too, Chiefs and Chiefs fans, more to the Chiefs. I nothing towards the fans. I like Kansas City fans. More to the Kansas City Chiefs. We heard this offseason. Mahomes said it. Some of his teammates said it. This is the 2nd straight offseason where the Kansas City Chiefs have been doing some talking. Now, you know me. I don't mind talking. Just back it up. That's why I ripped Aaron Rodgers last week. Aaron Rodgers did a lot of talking this offseason. Verbally and by his actions. Well, he was bad against the Saints. And so I ripped him for it. You got to back it up. That's how I do. I don't have a problem if you talk smack if you back it up. Well, last offseason after the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, you heard Frank Clark doing the old LeBron Miami Heat quote. Not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5. I'm like, hold on. What makes Tom Brady the greatest quarterback ever? Going to talk about Tom Brady later in the show. What makes Tom the greatest quarterback ever? What's his old quote? Someone asked him, what's your favorite ring? The next one. Not ring for the Chief, in the Chiefs case, not ring 3 or 4 or 5. No. The next one. And then this offseason, after Kansas City falls to Tom Brady in the Super Bowl, ironically, how that kind of came full circle, you hear talks of 20-0. Like, or just the next game. Like, don't worry about, listen, have Super Bowl goals. I get that. Have long-term goals, have Super Bowl goals, but don't get too far ahead of yourselves. Like, this is a week-to-week league, and we never had a 19-0 team in NFL history. The Patriots came darn close in 2007, and of course, that means we've never had a 20-0 team because now the 17th game has been added. Nobody's going 20-0. The Bucs aren't going 20-0. The Chiefs, now we know for certain, aren't going 20-0. That's the reality. Like, if you're going to talk smack, if you're going to talk 20-0, well, you got to back it up. And after 2 weeks, that's gone. The 20-0 talk's gone. Kansas City. And I respect Kansas City. I got nothing against Mahomes, Andy Reid. I love Andy Reid. I love Mahomes. Love some of the guys on that team. I don't need this. I know how great you are. I need you to keep winning Super Bowls. We were hearing dynasty, and I'm like, guys, hold on. They've won one. One Super Bowl don't make you a dynasty. In that case, there's been, a lot of dynasties in NFL history. More than what I think there's been about 4 or 5 dynasties at most. One don't get you there. You gotta keep grinding. You gotta keep grinding the offseason. So that's where I'm at. So with Baltimore, unbelievable win. Lamar Jackson, my dude, gets better every year. Takes another step. That's what I love about Josh Allen and Buffalo, who played amazing yesterday. Get better and better and better each year. For Kansas City, they're great. They're going to be championship contenders. But that's the thing. So let's talk about a little bit about the Dallas Cowboys. All right, for Dallas, I got a lot of mixed feelings right now. Y'all know I'm a Cowboys fan, but I got mixed feelings. Let's start with the good. Let's start with the good things I saw. Number one, this defense looks legit. I get it. 7 drives, Chargers, worst case scenario, got the ball to the 35-yard line. Okay, Justin Herbert, who I said before the season is already a top 10 quarterback, and he showed that once again yesterday, went up and down the field on this Dallas defense. But what's different from this defense than last year, A, they generate pressure. Micah Parsons had himself a game yesterday. He had a sack, which, trust me, Chargers fans, I promise I'll get to that sack. I promise. But Micah Parsons, multiple hurries. I think he got 8 pressures on Justin Herbert. That's the most since Von Miller by a rookie since 2011. Von Miller did that, 8 pressures on the quarterback. Micah Parsons did that yesterday. It's good company to be in. Good trajectory. And something else about the Cowboys that really, really gives me encouragement. They didn't have to win a shootout. Like, what's the thing we've known about the Cowboys for the last 2 seasons or so? To win, they got to score 30. If that's not even a proverbial statement. That's not like they got us 30s like the magic number. No, like they literally have to score 30. Up until yesterday, their last 17 football games, if they didn't score 30, mark it as a loss. 0-17 in their last 17 when they didn't score 30. Of course, we all know they won 20-17 yesterday. And so the thing with the Cowboys is, look, they show they can win ugly. It was not a pretty football game at all. That was a little too close for comfort. I said it'd be a close game, but I had Dallas winning 35-31. I didn't think it'd be that much of a slugfest, but I did say Dallas's rushing offense will be outstanding, and that's my next point. Tony Pollard needs to be the starting running back for the Dallas Cowboys, not Ezekiel Elliott. I've kind of been on this train for about a year. I've been hesitating, saying Tony should be the starter, like not 1A and 1B, like 1. Tony Pollard just has more burst than Zeke. Zeke's still effective. He's clearly in much better shape than he's been the last 2 seasons since he got that big deal, $90 million. But Tony Pollard's the better running back. Okay, he's quicker, more physical, fights for more yards, frankly, than Zeke does. Is it the fact that, Zeke has taken a lot of hits. He's had a lot of carries going back to high school and then in college at Ohio State and obviously with the Cowboys his first few years. I don't know. But Tony Pollard right now is a better running back than Ezekiel Elliott, and Dallas needs to commit to him as the one. Not saying don't feed Zeke. I get it. You're paying him a lot of money. But don't let that dictate what makes you successful on offense. And Tony Pollard is more successful, makes the Dallas Cowboys offense more successful than Zeke does. So that offensive line looked like 2014 a little bit, in which I thought was one of the greatest offensive lines of all time. Tyron Smith. Boy, I can't tell he's in his 11th year, which 11th year for a tackle. That's getting up there in age. Tyron Smith was outstanding. Zach Martin, welcome back, my man. Wow, pushing guys everywhere. Zach Martin played amazing. Terrence Steele, guy who drove me crazy last year. Dak and Andy Dalton and Ben DiNucci and Garrett Gilbert and all the quarterbacks who started for the Cowboys last year took a lot of hits because of Terrence Steele and how bad he was at right tackle last year. Huge improvement. Going against Joey Bosa. Played outstanding, in my opinion. Dak was not under pressure a ton from that right side. And you give credit to Terrence Steele for that. So the offensive line was good. Receiving play could have been better. Okay, Amari Cooper only had 3 catches, or was it 3 catches or 4 catches? Anyways, he's pretty ineffective. CeeDee Lamb, listen, I want Kellen Moore, and he did this a little bit yesterday. However you got to do it, get the ball in CeeDee Lamb's hands. He put him in the backfield on one play. CeeDee Lamb, a 13-yard run. So CeeDee Lamb's got more. I'm not saying CeeDee should be a running back, obviously, but CD had more burst than Zeke. Obviously, he's a wide receiver, but still, even out of the backfield, that's just goes to show you the Dallas Cowboys ran the ball extremely well. I'd have said they were the best rushing offense over the weekend if it weren't for Baltimore, but Baltimore was just running all over Kansas City. And so for the defense, big turnovers when they absolutely had to get it. Obviously, they had the Chargers' first drive. You get a 20-yard gain and a 22-yard gain. It's like, oh boy, here goes Herbert. And he throws a pick to Trayvon Diggs, who makes a great catch. Like that's one of the more impressive interceptions that I've seen. But then again, Trayvon Diggs' brother is a top 5 receiver in the league, Stephon Diggs. So, having good hands kind of runs through that family, runs through their blood. But Trayvon made a great play. And then, to me, what was the play of the game, the turning point in the game? Tied at 14, Chargers are driving again, and Justin Herbert throws it. Keenan Allen, the wide receiver, slips, and DeMonte KZ, for the second straight game, makes a huge red zone play. This one was an interception. Last week, against the defending champion Buccaneers, Chris Godwin looks like he's about to score, put Tampa Bay up 9 points, and game's probably over at that point. Forces the fumble, gives Dallas a shot. Of course, they hit the go-ahead field goal that gave Tom Brady too much time, to be honest with you. But KZ made that play to put them in that position. Well, yesterday, huge interception. And what did Dallas do? Went down the field, kicked the go-ahead field goal, and then we all know what happened from there. And just for you Chargers fans, I will admit, I'm objective on this show. That's what we do here at Carving It Up. That was as bad of a call on Justin Herbert as I've ever seen in my life. Okay, so he's rolling out, he's backing up. Micah Parsons is right in his face. And Micah grabs him. Herbert's starting to fling the ball away, and they whistle it dead as a sack. If that's the case, then Eli Manning should have gotten sacked on the play that became the helmet catch in Super Bowl 42, because that was not a sack. Okay, I'm a Cowboys fan. I'm definitely a Micah Parsons fan. That was not a sack. That was a bogus call that turned out to be huge as far as the game went for the Chargers. But then again, Chargers fans, your team committed 12 penalties. That can't happen. You can't commit 12 penalties and expect to win. You can't do it. You can't do it at all. Grady says, Grady Edwards, my man, he says, I get what you're saying about Zeke, but he did average 4.4 yards a carry and 16 carries. Not totally ready to write him off. Do you think Dallas should commit to giving him 25 carries next week and see what happens, then evaluate from there? I don't think you necessarily need to have a set carries for Ezekiel Elliott. I'm not giving up on him. I'm not saying they should just stop handing the football. But Tony Pollard, dating back to last year, has shown more burst, more quickness, frankly, more physicality, which really surprises me, than Zeke. So, and it's tough. I mean, do you try and get with Zeke and restructure his contract? I don't know. Maybe Dak's in his ear, telling him, hey, it's for the good of the team, but how's that go over? Because they're best friends and Dak got paid. I don't know. I don't think they should have a set carries for Ezekiel Elliott a week from tonight on Monday night against the Eagles, but it is something they need to look at. Tony Pollard right now is better than Zeke. So I'm not writing him off. I still think he can play, but right now Tony Pollard is a better player. And then finally, and this would have been leading off the Dallas topic had the outcome been different. So the Cowboys have the ball. Game's tied at 17, and Dak Prescott did what Dak Prescott always flipping does. Goes right down the field, drives the Cowboys right down the field for what would ultimately become another game-winning drive. I think Dak's 16th game-winning drive, if I'm not mistaken, since he came into the league. He drives him down, taking time off the clock, And all of a sudden, Dallas starts to run the ball once they're at the very edge of field goal range. Not to where you're like, oh yeah, they're in field goal range. Like the very, very edge. Like Zerline's long. And they run it with Pollard with 20. He's down with 21 seconds left. Cowboys have a timeout. It's third down. And Mike McCarthy fell asleep right there. Okay. No ifs, ands, or buts. Mike McCarthy fell asleep. Grady says, I know where you're going. Awful clock management. You know what? I won't try and explain it. Let's hear what Coach McCarthy has to say about what the heck happened right there.
Well, the clock situation just to the end was different. I've never had a clock go off the board on me like that. So, the second down, we're trying to chip away and just get a shorter field goal, and so we were going to attempt a third down play, and then kicking on fourth was the time frame we were in, 17 seconds, I think. So we were right on the threshold. We get into these 2-minute drills, you have thresholds, 1 minute, 30 seconds, 17 seconds. So we were right at the threshold there of our operation, and so we had a personnel. One of our players came off that shouldn't have come off, and just communication there. So then we were just going to run it down. But the clock I was watching went off the board, and then the clock Kellen had. I think he said a camera. He got blocked by a camera guy. So the communication was great from up top, and and obviously you want to call that timeout between 3 and 4 seconds. So.
Or you just lost track of the clock. When someone's lying, you ask somebody a question, you're not real sure if they're telling the truth, and their answer just keeps going longer and longer and longer. You're like, why do you got to give me this big, long explanation? Mike McCarthy's covering his you-know-what here. Okay, Greg Zuerlein, the guy who was the GOAT, not that GOAT, not the greatest of all time GOAT. He was bad. Opening night against Tampa, ironically in week 2, saved Mike McCarthy's tail. And Kellen Moore's tail for that matter. Because here's what I'm thinking, as Mike McCarthy is saying that. So you couldn't see the scoreboard. That I don't believe in itself, because he's acting like it was, if y'all saw Alabama-Florida play on Saturday, by the way, that game was way too close, but Alabama and Florida played on Saturday, and late in the game, the last 3 minutes or so, the clock just completely goes bye-bye. And the players are having to work off of the officials keeping the time down on the field. I mean, it was kind of a mess. The clock is in sync with the network broadcasting the game, so that way, the fans can see the clock, how many timeouts are left for both teams, obviously the score. The clock did not stop on CBS. The network obviously broadcasting the game. The clock didn't stop, so Mike McCarthy's lying there. And the second thing is that Kellen Moore, he said, was blocked off by a cameraman. Well, first of all, how is that the case? Kellen Moore's on the sideline. And the Cowboys offense is in the field, right? So Kellen Moore's calling plays. So he's in front of the whole bench. How does he get blocked off by a camera guy on the sideline? And thirdly, Mike said we were having to rely on the coaches upstairs, right, in the booth, like the coordinators upstairs, Dan Quinn and all of them. Well, how could they tell the time, but you couldn't? Like this is just a little white lie, is what it is. He's trying to cover himself. This is the same Mike. He's got a history of this, man. This is the same Mike McCarthy who, after he got hired by the Cowboys, at his introductory press conference, when there was the reports, right, like Mike McCarthy got the job because he, told Jerry Jones that he's the whole season before that, after he gotten fired by the Packers, he just been in his basement and watching film and looking at new offensive concepts. They asked Mike McCarthy about that at the press conference. Exactly what I said. And Mike said, yeah, I just wanted the job. I mean, I was willing to do anything to get the job. He just told Jerry and Steven to their face he lied. We all kind of know what the downfall of a lot of teams in this league is going to be this season, right? For example, like the Miami Dolphins, Their downfall is going to be they have no downfield passing game. Right? Tua doesn't have it. Tua got hurt yesterday. We, of course, wish him the best. But Jacoby Brissett goes in there. They still have no downfield passing game. The Steelers' downfall, they can't run the football. The Chiefs' downfall, if there is a downfall of the Chiefs this season, they can't stop a nosebleed. I thought the Cowboys' downfall, if anything, was going to be defense. I mean, listen, we know the Cowboys' downfall isn't going to be offense. I mean, you got an elite quarterback, you got a really strong running game, great offensive line, top 3 receiving core. It's not going to be the offense. We knew that going into the season. It's looking now, it's not going to be the defense. I mean, the defense, ladies and gentlemen, the Dallas Cowboys are leading the whole National Football League in takeaways. They forced the opposition to turn the ball over 6 times in 2 games, leading all of football. Stop me if you've heard this one before, folks. The downfall of the 2021 Dallas Cowboys is going to be the head coach, and more importantly, the owner. Why the owner, you ask? A, he hired the head coach. B, he does nothing but defend the head coach. Jerry Jones does nothing but hire puppets. We made fun of Jason Garrett for the puppet he was for a decade as the Cowboys head coach. The same to a certain degree can be said about Wade Phillips before Jason Garrett, and the same can 100% be said about Mike McCarthy. Y'all watch Hard Knocks this summer during training camp? Mike McCarthy was asking Stephen Jones who he should play in the Hall of Fame game against the Steelers to start the preseason. You're the head coach. That's your decision. That's not Stephen Jones' decision. It's not Jerry Jones' decision. You're the head coach. What are you doing? It's just, my man John from Fan Perspective Podcast, more definitely going to be the coach next year. Boy, I hope. Because all the rumblings are Kellen Moore's going to be a head coach next season, and I really hope it's with the Dallas Cowboys. Is Kellen a puppet? I don't know. But I trust him more than I do Mike McCarthy. My question is, what does Mike McCarthy do? What does he do? Because obviously Dan Quinn is the defensive coordinator. He calls the defensive plays. Kellen Moore is the offensive coordinator. He calls the offensive plays. So what does Mike McCarthy do on the sideline? That's my question. John also says Fuller's coming back this week. Yes, he is. That is big for the Dolphins. Grady says KC's downfall might be they look too cool for school. Yeah, they looked too darn comfortable last night. Kind of reminds me of the 2015 Warriors. KC could have won that game by 2 touchdowns. Not to take away any credit from Baltimore, but they don't have any business beating Kansas City. I don't know if I go to they don't have any business beating Kansas City. You know, any team can lose on any given day. We all know that in the NFL, especially. I mean, the Saints looked like world beaters in week 1, and they looked terrible against Carolina yesterday. So it's a week-to-week league. But, yeah, I mean, you can make the argument for the Chiefs. They don't have any sense of urgency, really. But, you know, we'll see. But it's just what drives me crazy about the Cowboys. You got the quarterback. You got the running game. Offensive line is finally healthy. Knock on wood. Hopefully that continues. The defense. Thank you, Lord. We actually have a defense. And the head coach almost blew it. The head coach came that close to blowing it. And Greg Zuerlein let him off the hook. There's no question about that. So, like I said, mixed feelings about this game. Good win for the Cowboys. And what's really good for the Cowboys is that the next 4 games they play, all of them are non-playoff teams. Got Philly next week. They're better than Philadelphia. They should win that game. Carolina, listen, Carolina looks legit right now. And Carolina is actually going to have an extra few days to prepare for Dallas because they play this Thursday. So they're going to have more time to prepare for Dallas than, the other way around. And then, of course, they play the Giants. Dallas should beat the Giants at home. And then the New England Patriots. I will get into Mac Jones briefly. Dallas should absolutely smoke New England, but that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about the former quarterback in New England, Tom Brady. And so yesterday actually happened to be my If I Were a Bet Man segment. I said I keep saying New England. Tampa Bay, -12.5. Take that and run with it. And of course, Tampa Bay more than covered against a pretty bad Atlanta team. Matt Ryan looks really bad. Matt Ryan's my backup fantasy quarterback to Patrick Mahomes, and I'm starting to rethink that decision. But the point is, Tampa Bay took care of business. And Tom Brady, the old guy, threw 5 touchdown passes. And so, we hear the question over and over again.
Can Tom Brady play until 50 years old?
Of course he can. Of course he can at this point. I gave the reasons on Friday. I gave the reasons Friday. For those of you that missed the show, I said, A, he takes great care of his body. B, Tampa Bay will attract free agents as long as he's there. By the way, Richard Sherman is rumored to be talking to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, so they might get another good veteran player because of Tom Brady. And then the number 3, today's rules favor the offense. And of course, you see in some of these games this weekend, there's only so much you could do to hit the quarterback. So that's kind of where it's at. But what's just ridiculous about this, not necessarily that Tom threw 5 touchdowns yesterday. That's impressive. We get that. But for the most part, we kind of have grown to expect that from Tom Brady at this stage in his career. At least I have. I mean, it does never cease to amaze me that he is 44 years old and looks like the front runner for the MVP. I mean, guys, the man has 9 touchdown passes in 2 games. That's come on. It's crazy. But two stats about Tom that are ridiculous. I'll start with the less impressive one, then go to the one that just knocked me back in my chair when I saw it. So dating back to week 16 of last season, Tom Brady has now thrown at least 4 touchdown passes in 4 consecutive regular season games, tied with Dan Marino for the second longest streak in NFL history. Only Peyton Manning had a longer streak. He had 5 straight games in 2004 of 4 touchdown passes in a game. And Tom is doing this, again, for those of you that don't know, in his mid-40s. And more on him being in his mid-40s. Tom Brady has thrown more touchdown passes in his 40s than his 20s. That stat doesn't even sound real. He's thrown more touchdown passes in his 40s than his 20s when he was a baby. I mean, that's insane. That doesn't even make sense. So you sit back and watch that game and listen, first of all, you find out, yeah, Atlanta's terrible. They're garbage. I didn't like Atlanta going into the season at all. I had them winning 5 games. That might have been kind of generous now looking back at that. But for Tampa, they're moving the ball on anybody. And if you watch that game, Tom still has the zip on the ball. If not, it looks like he has more zip on the ball. Like, those of you that know football, just that quick release. Tom's always had the quick release, but the ball coming out of his hands in a 1/10 of a second. I mean, it's crazy. It looks like it's not as pretty as, say, a Patrick Mahomes or an Aaron Rodgers, but it's out just as quick. He's moving great in the pocket. Obviously, we know he last season played with the torn MCL, which is insane. And it goes to what I've said about Tom Brady for a while now. He is a cyborg. He's not human. Humans aren't supposed to be 44 throwing 5 touchdown passes in a game and still breaking NFL records at his age. But what's really interesting right now is that Tom Brady, 2 weeks from now, could have a shot to break Drew Brees' all-time passing yards record in his old stomping grounds in Foxborough, Massachusetts. How cool of a story would that be? But this is kind of hard to explain. I don't get it. Grady says, Grady's a Patriots fan. He says, to me, Brady's prime ended when he lost to Philly in the Super Bowl, but gosh, he's still close to it. Grady, is his prime over? Because listen, after he lost to Philly in that Super Bowl in which he threw for 505 yards and 3 touchdowns and made one mistake, his defense couldn't stop a nosebleed, couldn't stop Nick Foles for crying out loud. But Tom Brady made one mistake late in the game. Brandon Graham strip sacked him. By the way, Brandon Graham's out for the season with a torn Achilles. We wish him all the very best. Sucks that he goes down like that, even if it is a Philadelphia Eagles player. Wish him all the best in his recovery. But even after that game, 2018 Patriots won the Super Bowl, but Tom Brady didn't look like Tom Brady. Like, he was good, but he wasn't like, wow, that's the GOAT right there. And then 2019, in the second half of the season, that's when a lot of people were starting to subscribe to the old, Max Kellerman cliff theory, right? Tom Brady's going to fall off a cliff. And for many, it was like, oh, here it is. He's 42 years old. He looks really bad against average teams. He's barely cracking 200 passing yards. And you can go back and listen to the tape. I said on this very show, in its infancy, albeit, Tom Brady's not done yet. His supporting cast in New England is hot garbage on the 4th of July. It's awful. His best receiver was James White, who's a running back. Edelman was old and beat up. N'Keal Harry, who's a bust. Jacoby Myers. I mean, are you kidding me? Gunnar Olszewski. That's not a supporting cast. And then Bill Belichick, who I've said is starting to get exposed a little bit. I'm just saying. Never made the playoffs except for one time without Tom Brady in his career, but, just throwing that out there. John says, I'm not putting enough time limit on Brady, LOL. I'm not either. Listen, I said on the show in January, I've got him retiring at age 47 after his 25th season. That was my prediction. I'm not saying he is going to play to 50. I'm not putting it past him. Sure, he can play to 50. Not saying he will, but I'm with you, John. I'm done putting time limits on this guy. He is otherworldly. It's ridiculous. But like I said briefly, Bruce Arians said himself, the Patriots are talking to Richard Sherman. So this could be another. And obviously Richard Sherman's not in his prime anymore, but he can still play. There's no question about that. You can add another smart young veteran player. I mean, what's the weakness of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Their secondary. Well, that'll help. Add Richard Sherman there. Jeez. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. Grady Edwards says, and again, he is a Patriots fan, so he knows. Ben Watson and a one-handed Edelman. Jacoby Myers, 3 years as a receiver and has never caught a TD in the NFL. That was our 2019 squad. Yep. It was bad. I said on the show back then that I'll say Tom Brady's done when he struggles and if he continues to struggle with a better supporting cast. Well, he got that better supporting cast and he threw 40 touchdowns and won the Super Bowl again. It's crazy. Tampa Bay still looks like the best team in the league. Their defense isn't perfect. It looks like it's taken a little step back, but if you remember last year, Tampa Bay's defense had some bad games against, the Saints and the Rams. They couldn't get off the field against Jared Goff. Last week, albeit it was against Dallas's offense, which is really good, but Dallas went right up and down the field on them. Atlanta started to, and then Matt Ryan threw 2 pick sixes. So, there's that, but they took the ball away. So Tampa's defense has struggled a little bit, but listen, they'll get their act together. There's no question about it. They're just getting out the gate slow. Same cannot be said about the offense. I mean, Gronk, who his last season in New England looked old, beaten up, didn't shock me at all that he retired, but as we all know now, he didn't retire from football. He retired from the Patriots. Took a year off and looks great. I mean, he's got 4 touchdowns in 2 games. The connection between him and Brady is probably the greatest connection of any 2 players in NFL history. You can throw, I'll put it against Montana and Rice. I'll put up against anybody. Even Brady Moss in 2007. All time. Matter of fact, I think they're actually in the record. I think Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski have combined for the most touchdowns of any quarterback receiver duo in NFL history. So there you go. But Tommy boy, you never cease to amaze me. But they've got themselves a tough challenge next week against the Los Angeles Rams at SoFi Stadium, where I believe they will be in February. Grady asks, is Gronk better than George Kittle right now? No, I'm not willing to go there. I mean, George Kittle can still ball. Like, if you switch Gronk and George Kittle, I think George Kittle, if you put Gronk on the 49ers and Kittle on the Buccaneers, I would certainly say Kittle's the better tight end. He's But Gronk can still block. Obviously, we know he can still catch passes at a very high level, certainly in the red zone. He's one of the best red zone targets that we have in the league. But Kittle's the best all-around tight end in football, but Travis Kelce is just such an outstanding receiver that's why I put Kelce over him. Kittle's an elite receiver. He's had a ton of big games in San Francisco, regardless of the quarterback, but Travis Kelce does some things that I can't even explain. I mean, Travis Kelce last year, if he didn't sit out the last week of the season against the Chargers, Travis Kelce could have led the league in receiving, which has never been done by a tight end, which is insane. So I'd take George Kittle over Gronk, not by a ton, but I would take George Kittle. John says, is Gronk the best of all time? He's putting up that argument, man. My top 3 tight ends ever, my personal top 3, is Tony Gonzalez, Shannon Sharp, and Gronk. It's those 3. I'll throw in the top 5, I'll throw in Jason Witten and Antonio Gates. But man, he may be the greatest tight end of all time. He certainly has that argument. There's no question about it. So I'm not putting it past him. Before I get to my Packers-Lions prediction, let me go around the rest of the NFL real quick. Had a lot of great games, a lot to take away from these great games. Obviously, I talked about the Washington Giants game on Friday, so we'll leave that aside. The Bears beat the Bengals 20-17. This is why I picked the Bears to win Sunday. It's why I'm going to pick against Cincinnati a lot. It's not that I don't like Joe Burrow. People think I'm a Joe Burrow hater or something. Part of the reason I thought he would struggle in Cincinnati, and he's not really even struggling. He played fairly well, although he threw three picks. So I guess that's not great. But Joe Burrow has no protection at all. His offensive line is garbage. I said during the draft, I said before the draft, I said it after the draft. They shouldn't have taken Jamar Chase. Nothing against Jamar Chase. I think the kid can play. I think he's going to be really, really good. But they needed Penei Sewell more. They needed offensive linemen more. The Bengals are going to make the same mistake that the Colts made with Andrew Luck, because the Colts kept drafting receivers and going out and getting receivers in free agency. Well, that's all fun and good, but the receivers can't get the ball if the quarterback doesn't have time to throw. Receivers are much easier to find than great offensive linemen. We all know that. I've heard the old saying that offensive lines are like an air conditioning system. You only notice it when it doesn't work. And it don't work a whole lot in Cincinnati. So going against that great Bears defensive line, it was bound to be pretty bad for Cincinnati. As for the Bears, would you please start Justin Fields, Matt Nagy, please? Okay, Andy Dalton's getting hurt. He's coming in. He's okay. And then there's, going back and forth and back and forth. Just start Justin Fields. He's ready. He's ready to go. That's my thing. Real quick, going back to the Gronk thing. Grady says Gronk at his peak was at least the most dominant. I think he's the greatest tight end, but you cannot ignore Tony Gonzalez and Sharp. Now, Kelsey's getting a discussion. Yes, he is. No question about it. But the greatest tight end discussion is certainly a good one. But I was not shocked with what happened in that Bears-Bengals game yesterday. The Browns, as I mentioned briefly earlier in the show, barely beat the Texans. This is why I didn't have the Browns getting past the divisional round this year. They got the roster. Okay, they ran the ball well again. As a team, as a team, they had 156 yards rushing. Chubb had 95. Hunt had 51. That's the best running back duo in football right there. I just don't trust the quarterback. I'm sorry. I don't trust Baker Mayfield. I don't know what I'm getting any given Sunday. Houston, ladies and gentlemen, is terrible. Deshaun Watson's not going to play this season because of all the allegations. Tyrod Taylor comes in, and he gets hurt early in the game. And so now the Texans are basically down to their third stringer, Davis Mills, who, by the way, I kind of like. I don't love him, but I like him out of Stanford. But you're throwing a poor rookie out there, and Cleveland wins by 10, and Houston's fighting with them up until, the last quarter and a half. That can't happen for Cleveland. At home, can't cover against a bad team. That is a concerning sign if you're a Browns fan. Rams beat the Colts. That was my upset pick of the week. I said the Colts would beat the Rams. I'm done. I'm going to do a lot more upsets of the week every week when I do my predictions on Fridays, but I'm not going to involve the Colts anymore because I'm done. I've never been a fan of his, but I'm done in any way, shape, or form believing in Carson Wentz. I'm done because the guy drives me absolutely crazy. That's why it offended me so much that up until about a year ago, there was a real debate as to who's better, Dak Prescott or Carson Wentz. I'm like, are you guys even watching the games? And Carson Wentz is throwing pick after pick after pick, at fumble after bad decisions. I mean, he's paired up with Frank Reich. That's his guy. That's the dude who had Carson Wentz on the brink of winning the MVP. And he was terrible yesterday. And shocker, I feel bad for him, but shocker, he's hurt again. He got hurt in training camp. Now he's hurt in week 2. He's day-to-day, according to the Indianapolis Colts. You don't know what you're getting. Really, better said, you don't know if he's even going to be there. The old cliche, the best ability is availability. And he's not available a whole lot. And when he is, he's throwing bad interceptions. I mean, the Colts should have won that game yesterday. They play better than the Rams. The difference is the Rams have a franchise quarterback. The Colts don't. The Colts are like the Browns. They've got the roster. And I like Baker, by the way, more than Wentz, by the way. The Colts have the roster. They don't got the quarterback. That's why it was so devastating when Andrew Luck retired last year or a couple of years ago. So, jeez. Grady asked a couple questions. He said, or not, he says, to you, who's the NFL's ultimate clown franchise? The Bungles, only team without a ring of honor, or the Texans, or who? I would probably say the Detroit Lions, who I'm obviously going to predict against the Packers. I think you probably have a pretty good idea of who I'm picking tonight. But the Lions in the Super Bowl era, folks, have one playoff win. In the Super Bowl era. By the way, Super Bowl 56 is this February, so that's half a century. One playoff win. It actually came against my Cowboys, unfortunately, in 1991. But you had something else about the Lions. They had 2 of the greatest players to ever play their position. Barry Sanders, who in my view is the greatest running back of all time. If he doesn't retire after 9 years, he's the all-time leading rusher. At least over Walter Payton and probably over the current rushing king, Emmitt Smith. I mean, Barry Sanders to me is the greatest running back ever. And they had Megatron, Calvin Johnson, and totally wasted his prime. And probably not going to put Matthew Stafford in this group, but probably wasted a lot of Matthew Stafford's prime. And you see what he's doing now that he actually has a supporting cast around him. So Bengals are a crappy franchise, so are the Texans, but I go with the Lions. I mean, they hired, their head coach they hired was this guy. So that just tells you all you need to know. And Grady also says ESPN was talking this coming week about how Indy might be Super Bowl contenders. In what world? Well, a world where they have a franchise quarterback, I guess. And as I mentioned before, they don't have that. They don't have a franchise quarterback right now. It's kind of unfortunate because I like their GM, their coach, offensive line, defense, receivers. They just don't have the quarterback, and it is a quarterback's league. If you don't have that guy, there's only so far you can get. I still think they'll win the division because it's not a great division, but it is what it is. Bills dominated the Dolphins yesterday, 35-0. Josh Allen looked great. Tua got hurt. Wish him the best, but golly, the Dolphins got to get a new quarterback. And I don't know where they're going to find him because this upcoming draft, I'm not high on either of the 2 top quarterbacks coming out of Oklahoma and North Carolina, not high on either of them. In free agency, I mean, does Aaron Rodgers want to go to the Dolphins? If he does, yeah, you'll be great for a time, but you won't have him that long. I mean, he said this offseason, and in an interview clip I played last week, he thought about retirement. The Dolphins have a good roster, and once again, this is a situation where you got to have that guy at the quarterback position. They don't have that. The Bills do. You saw the difference. 35-zip. Patriots, Jets. Let me talk about the Patriots and Jets for a second. I know Grady's probably still in here. He's a Patriots fan. I'm sorry, Grady. I got to say it. because I said in January when the Mac Jones hype started after Alabama beat Ohio State to win yet another national championship, I've said then, I'll say it now, Mac Jones doesn't impress me. He's not a franchise quarterback. Okay, I get it. He's really smart. He's a good teammate. Taking nothing away from that. So there's a lot of backup quarterbacks who have those same characteristics. Chase Daniel has been in the league, feels like, for 15 years. Why? He's a good teammate, works hard, he's good in practice, he's good mentoring the starter. Chase Daniel's made a lot of money doing that. All right, Teddy Bridgewater. Now, Teddy's the starter in Denver and is playing well right now, but Teddy, when he's been the backup, that's what he's done. I mean, Zach Wilson yesterday played like dog crap. I mean, he was horrible. He actually threw as many in the first half. He threw as many interceptions as completions. I mean, he was horrible. Threw 4 interceptions in the first half, and despite 4 takeaways, Matt Jones threw for 186 yards, had a QBR of 28.6, and a passer rating of 89. I mean, 4 takeaways and did virtually nothing with them. Field goals and punts. I mean, he's not that guy. And you add to it that the Patriots receiving core, and this is why part of the reason Tom Brady left, the receiving core is awful. This is a recipe for disaster. The Patriots are not going to make the playoffs this year. At least occasionally, and I know he played bad yesterday, but at least occasionally, Trevor Lawrence looks like, oh, wow, that's something. Now, he also makes decisions like, what the heck are you doing, Trevor? But he's a rookie. That happens. There's nothing about Mac Jones that's like, wow, like that's a franchise quarterback. That guy can take us places. I don't see that. Doesn't mean he has to play perfect. And I feel like that's what the Patriots are trying to do. They're trying to have him play perfect. And a couple weeks from now, when they go against Tampa Bay, it's going to be a long night for Mac Jones and more so for Bill Belichick going against his old quarterback, Tom Brady. But it is what it is. Niners beat the Eagles 17-11. Jimmy Garoppolo had another iffy game, to say the least. Jalen Hurts played a good first half, did not play a good second half at all. There was a point in the game in the first half where the Eagles got a 91-yard pass. They were at their own 2-yard line. Nick Sirianni with a gutsy call, or whoever Philly's offensive coordinator is. Jalen Hurts throws a deep ball. They get it inside the 10-yard line, and then they got first and goal, second goal, third and goal, fourth and goal. They can't get in the end zone. I feel like that was a turning point in the game when San Francisco held them after getting such a massive gain through the air. Philly's fine. Philly's better than I thought. I'll give them that. But they're not beating Dallas for the division. Frankly, I don't think they'll beat Washington in the division standings. They may end up getting past the Giants for third in the NFC East, but they're not better than Dallas, clearly. And I don't think they're better than Washington. But that's where I'm at. Grady, back to my Patriots point. He said he's okay, talking about Mac Jones. I think he'll be a Mark Bulger or Matt Schaub, a Dante Culpepper, who are good for a time, but defenses just figure them out eventually. Well, at least you're objective. I would listen, if I was a Patriots fan, if he's Dante Culpepper could play for a while, but like you said, he kind of fizzled out, and defensive coordinators kind of figure these dudes out. Matt Schaub, I'd take that too. He was decent for a time with the Houston Texans. So if he's that, I'd call it a success if you're the Patriots, but I don't even really see that. I don't see it with that kid. I know some people do. I understand that, but I don't see it with Mac Jones. Going to the next game, Raiders Steelers. Derek Carr. Listen, it's time for Derek Carr to start getting his respect. I've always liked Derek Carr. He puts up good numbers. Part of the issue the last few years is his defense has been atrocious. And at times, coaching decisions have been questionable by John Gruden. But, hey, the Raiders beat the Ravens at home, and they beat the Steelers at Heinz Field, which to me is the most impressive win of week 2. Even more than the Ravens beating the Chiefs, because you're like, if someone would have told you the Ravens are going to beat the Chiefs in a close game, you'd have said, yeah, I could see that happening. You wouldn't have been like, what? The Steelers beating the Raiders, I'm like, that's a sure thing. That was almost my if I were a betting man segment. But I feel like the line was a little too far in favor of Pittsburgh, but I figured Raiders are going to a an East Coast team all the way from Vegas to Pittsburgh. It's basically a 10 a.m. kickoff Vegas time, and they absolutely dominated Pittsburgh. The final score wasn't necessarily indicative of a domination, but Steelers, it's time to move off Big Ben. He cannot push the ball down the field. He can't do it. That elbow injury he had a couple years ago, I think, was it. And it sucks. You don't ever want to see quarterbacks or any player for that matter go out kind of fizzle out, kind of like Peyton Manning won the Super Bowls last season, but God, he was awful in 2015. I feel like that's gonna be the same thing we see from Ben Roethlisberger. So Steelers need to move on after this season from Big Ben. And as for the Raiders, they're a lot better. They're going to surpass what I had. I am going 4-13. I certainly undersold them. I don't know if they'll be a playoff team because we've seen this movie before with the Raiders. They get out to a good start and then they completely collapse in December. So we'll have to see. But listen, they're playing good football on both sides. Broncos, Jaguars. Teddy played well. Teddy Bridgewater played well. Trevor Lawrence was awful. This is a really good Denver defense against a rookie quarterback with not much of a supporting cast. That was bound to happen, so that wasn't a surprising one for me at all. I picked the Saints to win close against the Panthers, and Carolina dominated New Orleans. Totally dominated New Orleans. The thing with the Panthers that's really interesting to me, it's amazing when a Jets quarterback leaves and gets a support system. I'm sorry, John. I'm sorry, Alfred. To all my Jets fans out there, it's kind of like what I've said on the show before when Zach Wilson was drafted. The New York Jets, where a young quarterback's dreams go to die. I mean, Zach Wilson looked awful yesterday. Sam Darnold had a lot of games like that in his, 3 years with the Jets. Well, he goes to Carolina and they're 2-0. I didn't have the Panthers making the playoffs this year. I still don't have them making it. But I have said this offseason, I like what they're doing. I said last offseason, love the Matt Rule hiring. I loved what he did at Temple, and then what he did resurrecting a bad situation in Baylor, got them to the Big 12 championship game and almost to the college football playoff. Carolina hires him. I loved what the Panthers did, and they're going in the right direction. Don't think they're a playoff team, but they're 2-0, feeling good about themselves, and they should be. Vikings-Cardinals, that was a crazy game. That was a crazy game. Vikings lost another close game. Kyler Murray played unbelievable. I think he's second to Tom Brady right now in the MVP race. He looks outstanding. But this is the Cardinals team that I said they're going to the playoffs. I said every NFC West team is going to get in. I like the Cardinals more than I do Seattle right now. I'll get into the Seahawks in just a second. And I like them more than San Francisco. So, do they threaten the Rams to win the NFC West crown? I don't think so. I think the Rams are more ready to win right now because if you say they beat the Rams for the division, in a sense, what you're kind of saying is the Cardinals are Super Bowl contenders. Now, I don't think they're there yet. I think the Rams are. I don't think Arizona is yet. But, hey, look, like the Panthers, and they're further along than the Panthers, they're going in the right direction. Falcons, Buccaneers, talked about that with Tom Brady. There's not much more to say there. And then finally, Titans, Seahawks. That was probably the most shocking win of yesterday for me because I'm like, Titans were garbage against Arizona. I mean, Ryan Tannehill was sacked 5 times by one dude, Chandler Jones, in 3 quarters. Derrick Henry couldn't get anything going. But boy, my number one fantasy draft pick, Derrick Henry, did not let me down yesterday. Goodness. He gave me 41 fantasy points, but y'all don't care about that. The most important thing about Derrick Henry is that he had 182 yards and 3 touchdowns. I mean, it is a quarterback's league, as I've said multiple times, but you can't stop King Henry. Can't stop him. He is a monster. He is, I think I said in my show he's the 4th best player in the league. 4th or 5th. I had him right there. But, geez, he's unstoppable. Tannehill threw for 300 yards. He played well. And, Russell Wilson kind of fizzled out in the 4th quarter and overtime. which is something that I've talked about, was a growing, and I love Russell Wilson. I really do. I think he's a top 5 quarterback, but it's something that I talked about last year. Late in these close games, Russ kind of fizzles out a little bit. Now, look, new offensive coordinator. It's only week 2, but I was pretty shocked that Tennessee went all the way up to Seattle, finally having fans up there in the Pacific Northwest. We all know that's a huge home field advantage there, and going up there and winning. That was an impressive one. So before I get into my prediction as well, a couple more comments from Grady. Who is more finished, Big Ben or Matty Ice? Grady, I'll probably say Big Ben. At least Matty Ice can push the ball down the field. Now he's throwing some bad interceptions. He's not where I thought he'd be right now. I didn't expect Super Bowl quarterback, MVP Matt Ryan. But last year he put up good numbers. The offense was good for Atlanta. It was their defense that was just atrocious. And now Matt Ryan looks just as bad. So, but I think he's better along than Big Ben. Like I said, Big Ben cannot throw the deep ball anymore. And that's one of the things that made him great for so many years in Pittsburgh. And once you take that away, he's kind of one-dimensional. He's kind of just dink and dunk. So, and then Grady also says, Atlanta looks like they got rid of the wrong guy, Julio. Yeah, Julio looked good yesterday. Had over 100 receiving yards. Played well against Seattle. All right. Last prediction of week 2. Thus far in week 2, I've rebounded slightly from week 1. Week 1, I went 9-7. Thus far in week 2, I'm 10-5, looking to go 11-5. Detroit Lions, Green Bay Packers. Game kicks off at 8:15 Eastern on ESPN, 5 p.m. Pacific time. Green Bay is favored by Vegas right now, minus 11.5. They like the Packers a lot, so they should. They're at home. Listen, Detroit's coming off a loss last week, a wild loss last week, mind you, to the Detroit Lions, in which they played horrible for 3.5 quarters, really 3 3/4 quarters. And then they had a furious rally in the last few minutes and almost came back to at least send that game against the 49ers to overtime. You know, Jared Goff put up big numbers, but ultimately it was all for naught. And then the Packers looked like the worst team in the league last year, or excuse me, worst team in the league last week against the New Orleans Saints. Well, the Saints didn't look so good this weekend, and so that's not a great look on Green Bay either. But over the last forever, the Packers have dominated Detroit. They should. They're a better run organization. They got a better quarterback. They got a better roster. They got a better coach. They're going to win the division. The Lions are not. That said, let's put up the final score. I've got the Packers winning this one comfortably. I've got them winning this one easily, 36-16. This Lions team, I think, is going to have the number 1 pick. I think they're horrible. Y'all know I'm not high at all on their head coach. Matter of fact, I'm not big on him in the slightest, Dan Campbell. Jared Goff is fine. He's okay. There's a reason the Rams let go of him, and Rams look pretty good, and the Lions are worse than they were a couple years ago. I mean, they're awful. Grady says, I hope the Lions pull it out and that it'd be so funny. Yeah, it'd be interesting, man. I cannot imagine my show on Thursday if Detroit wins this game. My goodness. Green Bay better hope they win this game, and they better win it big. They're way better than Detroit. I don't care that it's a division matchup. Usually those are close. Green Bay is way better than Detroit. This should not even be any semblance of a game. Like, I want to be able to go to bed early, get a good night's sleep, and not have to stay up and watch a game that shouldn't be close. I hate it when that happens. I got to get my sleep, guys. And y'all should too. All right, that is all the time we have for tonight's show. Appreciate everybody who stopped by. Grady and John and Barry and everybody else who stopped by to watch Carving It Up this evening. Be sure to catch the show on Thursday, as always, at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on Facebook Live, YouTube, and Twitter. If you're on YouTube, while you're here, be sure to click that big red subscribe button if you haven't already. Be sure to like, comment, and share, and it helps the channel and the show grow exponentially. If you watch the show, listen to the show, mind you, on Carving It Up Podcast, we appreciate that. You've been listening on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and Anchor, as well as wherever you get your podcasts. So enjoy the game tonight. For those of you that will be watching, I will be watching the Manning Brothers broadcast personally because those guys were great last week. Can't wait to watch them this week and watch the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers. Have a great evening, guys. See you on Thursday. Stay safe. God bless you all. Peace out.